In my incredibly humble opinion, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. He's inspiring, he's got an incredible power set, and he's always got a bad joke to keep a good fight going. But in a multiverse as crazy as Marvel's, there are plenty of notable instances where the wall crawler's gone a little bit over to the dark side. Hey everyone, my name is Josh Busker, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 times Spider-Man was the villain. Let's get right into the numbers, shall we? First off, we have Spider-Man's infamous deal with the devil in the super controversial storyline One More Day, featuring the demonic villain Mephisto. While a lot of the entries on this list deal with alternate universe versions of Peter Parker that have gone to the dark side, the Marvel 616 universe Spider-Man has had his fair share of dark mistakes as well. After Aunt May was mortally wounded by an assassin's bullet and all other forms of magical intervention had been exhausted, Peter is approached by Mephisto in the guise of a little girl who offers to save Aunt May in exchange for one thing: Peter and Mary Jane's marriage. While Peter and MJ had noble reasons for accepting the deal, making contracts with demons is definitely a more villainous action than most heroes would take, and has led to many unforeseen consequences in Spider-Man's life ever since. In another example of the mainstream Marvel Universe's Spidey crossing a dark line, number 9 has gotta be when he fought with Daredevil to try and kill Sin Eater. Guilty of having killed Peter's one friend on the police force, Captain Jean DeWolf, Sin Eater was beyond redemption in Spider-Man's eyes, and was nearly beaten to death before Daredevil intervened. And while eventually Peter was able to see reason, he was on the verge of beating a man to death, showing just how blurry the line between supervillainry and superheroics can be. Coming in at number 8, we have the tragic death of Mary Jane Watson in the Spider-Man Reign storyline. In this alternate universe, an elderly Peter Parker gave up being Spider-Man decades ago, and has since let New York devolve into a dystopian police state, with supervillains being led by the city's mayor. The reason for this old Spider-Man's lack of action is unfortunately heartbreaking, with the love of his life, Mary Jane, having succumbed to cancer after too many years caring for a radioactive husband. And while eventually Peter finds redemption and takes back the city, it still goes to show how dark a world without Spider-Man can be. At number 7, we have Man-Spider, the horrific result of what would happen to Peter Parker if he was a bit more spider and a little less man. Man-Spider first appeared when Angel from the X-Men and Peter Parker were both captured by the villain Brainchild within the prehistoric Savage Lands. Brainchild's plan was to devolve his enemies into more primordial forms, and this left Spider-Man with a hideous appearance, even more limbs than usual, and an unstoppable murderous hunger. While he was eventually able to regain his human form without doing too much damage, every time a villain alters Peter's genetics to favor his spider side has led to massive amounts of internal strife and hunger for human flesh. Speaking of which, number 6 has us talking about the Peter Parker from the Marvel Zombies universe, and this guy's got even more of a thing for eating people than our last number. Zombie Spider-Man unfortunately was infected early on when his world began to fall to the zombie plague, bitten by a half-decapitated Captain America. Before he even really knew what was happening, this version of Spider-Man had consumed the brains of his beloved Aunt May, Mary Jane, and even J. Jonah Jameson. While still retaining most of his personality, this version of Spider-Man was motivated entirely by hunger, to the degree that he even joined in a superpowered mob to topple and devour Galactus when he visited the zombified world. Not exactly the most polite table manners, my dude. Coming in at number 5, we have none other than the Assassin Spider-Man of Earth 8351. Over the years, Spider-Man's had many different kinds of web shooters, from homemade mechanical ones to the biological ones of the Sam Raimi films, but this is probably the only version of Spider-Man where the web shooter is just a shooter, meaning it's literally just a gun. Yes, believe it or not, there's a Spider-Man that just shoots people instead of web slinging. Having abandoned New York in his own universe to become an international assassin alongside of Wolverine, this Spider-Man has entirely given up on great responsibility and seeks only to make a living far, far away from the family he left behind. At number 4, we have perhaps the most well-known occasion where Spider-Man was a villain, because he literally had a villain inside his head. That's right, it's the Superior Spider-Man. After many years of being arch rivals, Spider-Man was seemingly defeated by Dr. Otto Octavius when the dying supervillain swapped their consciousness around, leaving Peter Parker to seemingly die in the frail villain's body. While Otto was motivated by the desire to be a better, aka superior Spider-Man, his violent tactics and invasive use of Spider-Bot technology were frowned upon by most every other hero, and it was only after surrendering Peter's body back that Octavius would admit that Parker was the actual superior Spider-Man all along. Coming in at number 3, we've got the evil CEO Peter Parker from the video game Spider-Man: Edge of Time. We've been counting through a list of times that Spider-Man has changed or used his superpowers for evil throughout the multiverse, but this incarnation proves that even Spidey's alter ego can go very, very bad. After losing many of his loved ones in this universe, Peter became CEO of the Alchemax Corporation, determined to use his scientific knowledge and time travel to prevent anyone he loves from being hurt ever again in any timeline, no matter what the cost. This version of Peter has also twisted his uncle's beloved words, using the mantra, "With great powers comes great responsibility and great opportunity." And the only way to live up to all that responsibility is to use every opportunity to get all the power. At number 2, we've got Spider-Carnage, best known from Spider-Man the Animated Series, and perhaps the single deadliest multiverse variant of Peter Parker we've yet to see from Marvel. In a world where Peter had an even rougher life, with Aunt May passing away shortly after his Uncle Ben, this Peter was manipulated and abused by the cloning supervillain the Jackal into believing he was not the real Peter Parker. This mental instability was made even worse by the appearance of a Carnage symbiote from another dimension, which latched onto this Spider-Man's confusion and hatred to create Spider-Carnage, a being with endless, insane rage, but also the intellect of a genius. Spider-Carnage's one goal was to bring about an end to all possible realities, something even Thanos wouldn't consider attempting, and he was only able to be defeated by multiple Spider-Men working together to defeat their twisted variant. Finally, at number 1, we've got the death of Uncle Ben, which is perhaps the defining moment in all of Spider-Man's career. Now, I know it may be a little controversial to choose something from Spidey's origin story as the number 1 pick, especially considering how many evil multiverse stories there are, but in my opinion, one of the best aspects of Spider-Man is that he isn't perfect. Sometimes he makes mistakes, even bad ones, and it's how he reacts and learns from these mistakes that make him such a great hero. When Peter first gets his powers, he initially just wants to become famous with them, and winds up letting a thief go when his wrestling gig is barged in on. It's this thief going on to kill Uncle Ben, and Peter's realization of how badly he screwed up, that fully cements in him that with great power comes great responsibility. You don't even have a single Spider-Man story if you don't have this one villainous moment from Peter, one that he's still trying to make up for to this day, and that, in my opinion, is why it comes out on top. That's all of today's Friendly Neighborhood Top 10 list, but if you enjoyed this video, why not hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and tell me more about all the villainous Spidey moments I missed in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Josh Busker, and man, I can't believe this video made me even more excited for No Way Home. See y'all later!